Hi, grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's short lesson. In today's class, I'm going to be showing you calculations that pertain to cost accounting. So to do that, I'm using the NSC November for the year 2023. Question number 2. And then it says the business is owned by Mark Fit, manufactures t-shirts. The financial year ends on 28 February 2023. So it is very important that you understand your time frames when the financial year begins as well as when it ends. Do not always assume that it's going to end in February. I've seen question papers where it will end in June, where it will end in May, where it will end even in September. So make sure that you familiarize yourself with different financial periods. Question 2.1.1 says calculate the direct material cost. So we're going to try and do everything and see if we can answer this question in good time. So we come to information A, and information A gives us stock records, raw material, fabric to manufacture t-shirts. And it says fabric is issued from the storeroom to the factory for production. The weighted average method. So very key that in this question, they're using the weighted average method to determine the value of the fabric. And then note 1.2 meters of fabric is required to make one t-shirt. The following information was extracted from the records. Okay, so here what we need to do is to give value to these raw materials that were issued to the factory. We can see that it's 18,900 meters, but we don't know their value. We need to calculate their value using the weighted average method. And in order for us to do that, we are going to take the materials that are available for use, the materials that are available for use, that is your 958 800. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to say my 958,800, and I divide this one now by the meters available for use, which is 20,400. These are the meters that are available for sale. And then we're going to come here and then we're going to say my 958 800, and then I'm dividing that by my 20.4, and then to give me 47. So it means my price is 47 rand per meter. That is my weighted average value per meter. Then I'll take my number of meters, which is 18,900. So I'll come here and then I'll say multiply that by 18.9. So I'm coming here and I'll say multiply that by 18,900. And so I'll come here, then I'll say 47 multiplied by 18,900 meters. And then I'll end up with 888,300. So I'll come here, it becomes 888,300. Okay, so this becomes my direct material cost. That means I can bring it down here now. On top, then I'll say direct material cost. So I'll say direct material cost here at the top. And my direct material cost is going to be 888,300. Already, that is going to give me what I call my prime cost, where I'm going to say 888,300 plus 408,600 plus 408,600, and the total will give me 1,296,900. That becomes my prime cost over there. Okay, so let's go on to the next information and see what we can calculate. You can see here that we are required to do the note for factory overheads. All right, and here we're given an incorrect total. So we're required to do calculations so that we can have the correct factory overhead amount. Very key. I've seen that of late most papers come with this kind of questioning technique where you're given an incorrect amount and you have to calculate the correct amount. Let's see how we can do this one. Information B, it says, the bookkeeper calculated the factory overheads as 600,000, which is what we see over here. However, he made the following errors which must be corrected. Number one, the closing stock of factory indirect material 7,000 was omitted. That means I must come here and I must say indirect materials. indirect materials. Okay, so this is closing stock. And we know that when we are dealing with closing stock, it must be subtracted. So it means there is a 7,000 which was not subtracted. So I'll come here, then I'll say minus 7,000. This is what this means over here. Let's go to the next one. It says the total water and electricity cost for 84,000. This is for the year. Was included in the factory overheads. This should be allocated as follows. So we have the entire amount for water and electricity included here. That means I'll come here, then I'll say my water and electricity. So first I must take out the 84,000. Let me take it out already. So I take it out first. I've taken out the 84,000, which is that incorrect amount. And then now I know that that amount was supposed to be allocated as 15 for office, 25 for selling and distribution, and then 60% for the factory. That means I must take my 84,000 and I say 84,000 multiply by 60%. And that is the amount that I'll come and add over here. Let's see how we can do that one. So I'll come here, then I'll say 84,000. 84,000. Then I'll say multiply that by 60%. And that is going to give me 50,400. So I'll come in, then I'll say plus 50,400. So eventually, I'm now going to have a situation whereby I'm going to now say minus 84,000, minus 84,000. Then I say plus 50,400. Okay, so it's minus 84,000 plus 50,400, and I'm going to end up with a negative 33,600. So I'm coming here to say minus 33,600. That is what I'm ending up here with, a minus 33.6. Let's go on to the next one. The next one then says factory insurance of 45,000 was allocated. Okay, so factory insurance was allocated according to the old ratio. That is 3 for factory, 1 for sales and the office. Okay, so we understand that we also have insurance here, which was incorrectly allocated. Okay, and what I have taught you already is any incorrect amount, you must subtract it. So that incorrect 45,000, I'm coming here and I'm taking it out. I've taken out the incorrect 45,000. Okay, so we know that it was 3 over 6. We know that it was 3 over 6 of a certain amount. So we want to know how much it was before it was split. How much it was before it was split. Because we know that in the factory we gave 3, and that 3 is equal to the 45,000. We want to know how much was the 6 then. So you come to your calculator and you are now saying what you want is 6 and what you have is 3. And then you multiply that by your 45,000. And that will give you 90. That means the entire amount before it was split was 90,000. The entire amount before it was split was 90,000. Now we now need to say that 90,000 multiplied by 1.5 over 1.5 plus that plus that. So 1.5 plus 300, that's 1.8 plus 600, that's 2.4. Okay, so we'll come back again to our calculator, and then we are now saying what we want. This is what we want. We want 1.5, and what we have, which is the entire amount, is the 2.4. And we are going to multiply that by the 90,000. And then that will give us 56,250. And then we know we are going to come now and say plus 56,250. I close my bracket again. So on my calculator, remember, I have a minus 45,000. I have a minus 45,000 minus 45,000. And then I'll say plus 56,250. And then that is going to give me 11,250. So I come here, I have 11,250. And then I will now say 600,000. I'm now getting the total amount here at the bottom now because I'm done with all my adjustments. Don't forget to add this amount. I've seen that most of you would forget to add that 600,000 and we just start with the 7,000 there. That is incorrect. You need to remember that 600,000. Then I'll say minus 7,000 over there. And then I'll say minus 33.6. And then I'll say plus 11,250 plus 11,250. Okay. And then that will give me 570,650. So I'll come here, then I end up with my 570,650. Then I take that as my factory overhead cost. So I'm coming here, I now have my factory overhead cost. This is my factory overhead cost, and my factory overhead cost is 570,650. So I'm coming here, and now let me just do this on my calculator. I'm now going to say my prime cost, which is my 1,296,900. And then I'm coming to add my 570,650. And then my total becomes 1,867,550. 1,867,550. Okay. And then that becomes my amount there. And then I know that once I have my total cost of production, I must come here and add my work in progress at the beginning. So I must have my work in process at the beginning. So I need my information at the beginning. It was 0. So that maintains my 1,867,550. Then I subtract my work in process at the end, all right, which is my 235,500. I have that at the end. So I'll come again to my calculator, and I'm now saying 1,867,550 minus 235,500 minus 235,500. That gives me 1,632,050. 1,632,050. Okay, learners, thank you so much for joining me into this class. Hope to see you again next time. Watch out for the next video. Cheers. Enjoy your studies.